The White House must have been listening because they changed the tariffs for the automobiles. It sounded like the words were coming out of your mouth. They're like, well, they're going to need more time to set up these lines and set up these factories and stuff. They can't do it that fast. I was thinking, yeah, Jeff's got their ear. So, what did you think about the changes in tariffs? That was the most convoluted tariffs I've ever heard of, but maybe you can walk us through the results.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Tesla, Rivian, and most of the Ford models, I should say most of the Ford models, I'm not sure. Um, you're feeling pretty good. I do think people get confused about how content is measured. The proper way to do it is on a dollar basis, not on a part basis.
Mhm.
I think the window stickers should be doing that on the vehicles. It should. I think they're called. I think the technical term for that sticker is a Moroni sticker. Don't uh don't hold me
Sounds,
to that. But
sounds,
anyway, yeah, and yeah. So I think the important thing is to measure dollar content, and on a dollar content basis. And this is what's interesting. What Big Auto did with USMCA and quite frankly with globalization of supply chains is they took their most complex items and they moved them to the the lowest labor cost regions of the world.
sure.
So this is why you're getting these the engine assemblies, transmissions, and so forth in Mexico. By the way, as I as I deal with service issues on my vehicles, or I always look at if I can pull a couple of parts off the vehicle and look at them. I'm always looking for where's the country of origin. I'm even looking up some parts online. And basically the gist I'm getting is easy, basic plastic tooling. If it's a USA sold, a car you buy in the US, most of that is being done in Mexico.
Mhm.
If it's more complex, a lot of glass fill, a lot of insert molding, a lot of precision tooling, then you're probably you're going to see a made in China um, origin on it. You're not getting as much of the complex tooling being done in Mexico and other parts versus China,
Mhm.
and that is part of the story, which is over the last 2 decades, a lot of the precision tooling, the tooling engineers, the tooling shops, the measurement equipment, um, all the equipment involved to make this precision tooling, the mines, all that it's been flourishing there. It's been growing there. And essentially it's been a decay in the US. And a lot of those people have aged out, timed out of the industry. And so that's what's happening. So yeah, with these tariffs, I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, we're trying to bring auto tariff, we're trying to bring final assembly and more of the supply chain back to the US. So why would you tariff the inputs and why would you stack the inputs? And I wrote a long article. I wrote an article February 1st about as soon as I saw the auto tariffs, I'm like, this is game over for GM Stellantis. Tesla would be mostly okay, but still not unscathed, as Elon used that term. Ford would kind of be in the middle of it, and that's how it's basically played out. And I wrote another article early last week and published it, and just the insanity of this tariff stacking that was happening in the U.S., which was you're making a car, you're doing final assembly here, and we're going to tariff the inputs. You don't do final assembly here, but if you do it, we're still going to tariff the inputs and even the inputs to the inputs.
Right.
So if it's and and it got to the point of like, well, there's no way we're never going to get the economics right because these companies they can't just transfer the factory from the low cost area to the United States because if you transfer it as is, you're going to bust out in the United States because it's just like in blackjack. You're going to be hitting 16 all the time in the US and more times than not you're going to bust because you have this high labor cost in the US. So you can't transfer so it's not just transferring factories. I think that's where people get hung up. You actually have to change the economics of what you're building. And you're either going to charge more or you're going to restructure the work so it requires less labor.
Right.
And I'll come up for air here. This gets into a whole other conversation. You know, I saw the Commerce Secretary was on TV, you know, talking about, you know, his conversation with the Apple CEO and when are you going to build iPhones here. I find this to all be a very interesting conversation and what the answers are. But yeah, I'll stop there. But yeah, I predicted that this would happen with the auto tariffs, and I don't think they're done because this is still a very untenable situation for GM and Stellantis. I don't know if the U.S. is going to care too much about Stellantis, but they do have a lot of plants here. But I mean, Stellantis is more than 50% final assembly outside of the U.S. and you know, they're a European company, you know, their headquarter, but you know, it's a lot of U.S. companies that are rolled up into that. So they're in trouble. GM's still in trouble. GM put their earnings out and then delayed the call to Thursday.
Yeah.
So I guess they knew that there may have been some announcements coming, and this will help them a bit, but they're by no means out of the danger zone. Tesla, this becomes a little bit more of a cash issue for Tesla because Tesla still has to pay the tariff. But what's great about Tesla and their supply chain is that, again, that whole network latency conversation, shortest supply chain, shortest assembly time. If you're bringing the parts in, you're turning them quickly, you have the shortest assembly time possible. The way that they get that tariff relieved is on the sale of the vehicle now. So that's where I say there's a little bit of a cash issue, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not horrible. And then if you're Tesla and you only have 15 to 20 days of inventory, this isn't a big problem for you. But if you're Ford and you have 150 days of inventory, well, it's not as much relief as people are saying. It's kind of a cash issue for them too.
Yeah. Okay. And then they also talked about some of that tariff relief applying to future imports of cars, but I don't think that was in the Tesla portion of it. Did you understand that? I kind of brushed over that quickly.
I think they were talking about potentially some sort of exchange if you export vehicles made in the U.S. I'm not sure about. I didn't see that part you're referring to. Maybe it's there. I just didn't see it. But I know there is also some conversation. By the way, this is how Polestar was able to, I think, avoid a lot of the original China. Remember China? There was a China EV tariff, and Polestar is a Zeekr company, and the way that they were able to avoid it, Zeekr Volvo, that whole relationship basically is Volvo has plants in the U.S. is they build a product and they ship it or they export it, they get credits and they use those credits to deal with the inbound tariff on for Polestar because those are not made here. So there's going to be something coming on that too, which is basically like if you have an export business,
right?
You'll be able to get some credit, but man, the U.S. has got to get out of this mode of hitting the beehive in every single country because it's going to be hard to export if you've pissed everybody off. But I think this will subside, and they will be able to have a decent export business in auto.